The keys hit my palm with their familiar weight as Maya tossed them to me across the driveway. Her smile was different that Sunday evening. Too wide, too bright, like someone had cranked up the voltage on her usual grin. "Thanks again, Sophia. You're literally a lifesaver," she called out, already backing toward her friend's car that had pulled up behind my Honda Civic. "Oh, and check the glove box. I left you something." Before I could respond, she was sliding into the passenger seat, waving through the window as they drove off into the October twilight. I stood there for a moment, watching her disappear around the corner. That strange smile still burned into my retinas. Maya had borrowed my car plenty of times before. At 23, she was still saving for her own vehicle while working at the local pharmacy. I didn't mind lending it to her. What were big sisters for? But something felt off about this weekend. She'd been evasive about where she was going, just mumbling something about helping a friend move when I'd asked. I climbed into the driver's seat, immediately noticing the lingering scent of her vanilla perfume mixed with something else. Something chemical and sharp that made my nose wrinkle. The car felt different somehow, though I couldn't pinpoint why. Maybe it was just my imagination. As I pulled into my garage, curiosity got the better of me. What had Maya left in the glove box? Knowing her, it was probably a candy bar or a silly thank you note written on pharmacy receipt paper. She had a habit of leaving little surprises. Once I'd found origami cranes she'd folded from napkins scattered throughout my apartment after she'd house-sat for a weekend. I reached across and popped open the glove compartment. The small plastic baggie fell into my lap with a soft thud. My breath caught in my throat. Inside the clear bag were dozens of small, round pills, white tablets with what looked like numbers pressed into their surfaces. Even in the dim garage lighting, I could make out 80 stamped on several of them. My hands trembled as I held the bag up to the overhead light. OxyContin. I'd seen enough medical documentaries to recognize the distinctive markings. This wasn't just a few pills someone might have left over from dental surgery. This was serious weight, enough to indicate dealing, not personal use. "Maya, what have you done?" I whispered to the empty garage. My mind raced through the past few months, searching for signs I'd missed. Had she seemed different lately? Stressed? Short on money? I thought back to family dinners where she'd been unusually quiet, to phone calls that seemed to end abruptly when I entered the room. The pieces began forming a picture I desperately didn't want to see. I sat in the car for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, staring at the bag in my hands. This was my sister, the girl who used to build blanket forts with me, who cried when she accidentally stepped on a spider, who still called me when she had nightmares. How had she gotten mixed up in something like this? But even as my heart ached for her, I knew what I had to do. This wasn't just about Maya anymore. These pills could end up in the hands of kids, of desperate people who might overdose. People could die. With shaking fingers, I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? I found drugs in my car. A lot of them. I think my sister put them there. The next few hours passed in a surreal blur. Police officers in my driveway, taking photographs, asking questions I didn't have answers to. Detective Morrison, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and graying hair, sat across from me at my kitchen table as I gave my statement. "The pills tested positive for fentanyl," she said gently. "These aren't just stolen prescription drugs, Sophia. Someone has been pressing fentanyl into fake OxyContin tablets. Street value is around $15,000. I felt the blood drain from my face. Fentanyl. The word carried weight I couldn't fully comprehend, a weight measured in lives lost, families destroyed. "We'll need to bring Maya in for questioning," Detective Morrison continued. "Do you have any idea where she might be?" I shook my head, though even as I did, I remembered the friend's car that had picked her up. "She works at Greenfield Pharmacy on Maple Street," I offered weakly. The detective nodded, making notes. "We'll start there." They found Maya at work the next morning. I wasn't there, but Detective Morrison called to tell me she'd been arrested without incident. She was being held on charges of possession with intent to distribute, trafficking controlled substances, and because of the fentanyl, potential charges related to the overdose deaths that had been plaguing our county over the past 6 months. 10 years minimum, the detective said. If the DA can connect these pills to any of the recent overdoses, it could be much longer. I hung up the phone and sank onto my couch, the weight of everything crashing down on me. I'd done the right thing. I knew that intellectually. But emotionally, I felt like I'd just destroyed my sister's life with a single phone call. The media attention started 2 days later. Sister turns and sibling in fentanyl bust, read the headline in the local paper. My phone rang constantly, reporters, friends, distant relatives, all wanting to know how I could betray my own family. But for every person who condemned me, there was another who understood. Parents who'd lost children to overdoses, siblings who'd watched addiction consume their loved ones, people who knew that sometimes love means making impossible choices. Maya's preliminary hearing was held on a gray Thursday morning in November. I sat in the back row, watching my little sister shuffle into the courtroom in an orange jumpsuit, her hands cuffed in front of her. When she saw me, her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look away. During a brief recess, her public defender approached me. "She wants to talk to you," he said. "Just for a minute." The conversation took place in a small conference room with a guard present. Maya looked smaller somehow, fragile in a way I'd never seen before. "I'm sorry," she said, the words tumbling out in a rush. "Sophia, I'm so sorry. I never meant for you to get involved. I was just supposed to transport them, and when the heat got too intense, I panicked and—" "Maya, stop." I held up a hand. "You don't need to explain anything to me. But you need to tell the truth to your lawyer, to the police. If there are other people involved, bigger fish, maybe you can—" "I can't." Her voice was barely a whisper. "You don't understand the kind of people I got mixed up with. If I talk—" She trailed off, but the implication hung heavy in the small room. Looking at her then, really looking, I could see the fear behind her eyes, the exhaustion that went deeper than lack of sleep. This wasn't just about making quick money or even addiction. Maya was in over her head with dangerous people, and now she was facing the consequences alone. "I'll be there for you," I said finally. "Whatever happens, however long this takes, I'll be there. But I couldn't let those pills stay on the street. You understand that, right?" She nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I know. I would have done the same thing if it was you. I'm scared, Sophia." "I know. Me too." The guard indicated our time was up. As Maya was led away, she turned back one more time. "Thank you," she mouthed. That night, I sat in my car in the garage where this whole nightmare had begun, trying to process everything that had happened. My phone buzzed with a text from Detective Morrison. "3 arrests made in connection with your sister's case. She's cooperating. Things are looking better for her." I closed my eyes and leaned back against the headrest. Maybe there was hope after all. Maya would still face serious consequences. There was no getting around that. But if she was helping take down a larger operation, if her cooperation could prevent more deaths, maybe some good could come from this disaster. The hardest part was knowing that the sister who had borrowed my car that weekend was different from the one who had returned it. The Maya I'd grown up with, the one who left origami cranes and candy bars as surprises, had gotten lost somewhere along the way. But maybe, just maybe, she wasn't gone forever. I started the engine and backed out of the garage, leaving behind the space where my world had changed with the discovery of a plastic bag full of poison. Tomorrow, I would visit Maya again. Tomorrow, we would begin the long process of rebuilding our relationship from the wreckage of this betrayal and its aftermath. But tonight, I drove through the streets of our town, past the pharmacy where she'd worked, past the high school where we'd both graduated, past all the familiar places that had shaped us both. And for the first time since this began, I felt something other than devastation. I felt hope, because sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is refuse to be an accomplice to their destruction. Sometimes love looks like betrayal, and sometimes betrayal is the only path back to redemption.